Okay, female cat. And again, we'll pull all the digestive organs off to the right. Here's the left kidney. This cat has not been dissected, but you can still see the renal vein through the peritoneum. And also, you can see the ureter, that yellow structure, coming down through or under the peritoneum to empty into the urinary bladder laterally, although we have cut the lateral ligament of the bladder on this cat. And of course, there was one on the right side as well. Here are the reproductive structures in the female cat. Like most mammals, cats have multiple births or litters and need to have a uterus that's elongated. Two tubular structures called the uterine horns form the major component of the uterus in these animals. At the end of the uterine horn and just below the kidney, here is the ovary, and on its lateral surface, a tube, just barely visible, curves around the ovary, and that's called the uterine tube. It's held in place by a thin mesentery. This little transparent structure called the mesosal pinx. The uterine tube ends at this point, enlarges or empties into an enlarged tube, the horn of the uterus. On this cat, it's been torn and it's not really very visible, but all along the length of the uterine tube, there was originally this membrane or mesentery holding it to the dorsal body wall, and since it went all the way along the length, it got the name broad ligament. Extending off to the side, like a little sail, was a second membrane. And on the edge of this membrane, there's a thickening. This is the round ligament. But again, not terribly visible here because it's been torn. At the bottom of the abdominal region, the two horns of the uterus join together. The central part is called the body of the uterus. And then from there, the reproductive structures pass through the pelvic canal. To open up the pelvic canal, we cut through the musculature along the midventral line and separated the bones of the pubic symphysis. Here's bone, there's bone. This is the beginning of the pelvic canal. Here is the end of the pelvic canal. Passing down the pelvic canal from the urinary bladder is the urethra, just like in the male, and it goes all the way to the distal end of the pelvic canal. Posterior to that, and we've cut through the lateral ligament of the urinary bladder to show the reproductive structures more clearly. In the center here was the body of the uterus, and just about at the beginning of the pelvic canal, an inspection of that tube will reveal a little bump, which is the cervix of the uterus, the neck of the uterus, and that's the dividing line then between the uterus and the vagina, which continues and passes through the pelvic canal. At the distal end of the pelvic canal, the vagina and the urethra join together, and it's not visible on this dissection, but there is a common tubular structure that then leads to the exterior called the urogenital sinus. From the exterior, we can see the opening into that passageway. And again, about a ½ an inch long, a common passageway for urinary and reproductive tracts. Not present in the human. In the human, the equivalent structure is the space between the labia called the vestibule. Okay, and you want me to review? I don't know.
Might as well.
All right, so we had urogenital sinus, urethra coming out of the bladder, the vagina passing through the pelvic canal, the body of the uterus coming out just above the pelvic canal and separating into horns of the uterus, held in place by a broad ligament and a round ligament to the side. At the top of those tubes is the ovary, and lateral to it, the uterine tube curves around the ovary, held in place by a little mesentery called the mesosopinx. And the uterine blood vessels, the ovarian blood vessels, branch from the same place they would have in a male, although a little atypical on this cat. One little branch is coming along like that, and the major branch is actually branching off the renal artery to go out to the ovary, and then a vein comes back again.